Good afternoon. 3:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour from the Center for American Liberty, Mark Trammel is here as his organization wins a victory in a lawsuit filed by a mother and daughter against a school that was attempting to groom that girl into the gender cult. Mark will react to the news with us coming up this hour. Darren Hoover is here today at 4:30. He is a Gold Star father, the father of late Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover Jr. He will talk about his testimony yesterday about that disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. Don't miss this conversation ahead at 4:30. Then at 5:30, Congressman Andrew Clyde is with us. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Going through all of my notes today, I've sensed a theme, and that is this. Our leaders are far too old. The people who are currently running our government at the highest levels are ancient, and they're not with it. We have too many of these people doing this, and it is at our expense. It is not a charity exercise to make somebody president of the United States. It's not something nice you do for the old guy. Just let him go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for a couple of years. He'll be fine. It's not a retirement home. It's one of the most important jobs on the planet. And the fate of our country is on the line. And here we have Joe Biden, a man who can't get out of bed and do his job before 10 o'clock in the morning. That's not me saying that. That's the White House's position on this. Now, they will not say this out loud. They will not say this out loud. But it is the kind of thing that they say behind closed doors. In fact, today, there was an article published in The Guardian, and it consisted of an excerpt of a new book that's coming out by a guy called Franklin Foer. Franklin Foer just put together a book that documented the first 100 days or so of the Biden White House. As I understand it, basically, he was given early access to the Biden White House and access to everyone around the president. He's having conversations with them, kind of doing the reality show thing behind the scenes. How are you feeling? What are you thinking as you go through this? And a number of headlines have come out so far ahead of this book's release, and none of them are good for Joe Biden. Things look like a complete dumpster fire. So not only do they look like a dumpster fire from outside the White House, that's what they look like inside the White House as well. And the Guardian piece today is headlined, Biden privately admitted feeling tired amid concerns about his age, book says. Amid relentless debate about whether at 80 Joe Biden is too old to be president or to complete an effective second term, an eagerly awaited book on his time in the White House reports that Biden has privately admitted to feeling tired's in quotes, even as it describes his vast political experience as a vital asset. Really? How useful has that, quote, vast political experience been so far? 77% of Americans, we found out this week, according to Associated Press poll, do not want Joe Biden to run for president again. They don't think he has a second term in him, and they don't want a second term of him. Franklin Foer, writing in the name of the book is The Last Politician Inside Joe Biden's White House and the Struggle for America's Future. Quote, his advanced years were a hindrance, depriving him of the energy to cast a robust public presence or the ability to easily conjure a name. You'll recall sometimes he summons names of people that are already dead. Remember when he was asking for Jackie Walorski? Where's Jackie? Where's Jackie? He said Jackie had passed away. The White House had put out a statement sometime prior indicating that he was sorry that Jackie had passed away. Jackie wasn't in the room for obvious reasons. It was striking that he took so few morning meetings or presided over so few public events before 10 a.m., the writer says. His public persona reflected physical decline and time's dulling of mental faculties that no pill or exercise regime can resist. In private, he would occasionally admit that he felt tired. Now, this is something that we've known about for some time. In fact, you'll remember that it was Circlebacky Jen Psaki who had actually indicated at one point after she was no longer at the White House, she said she was shocked to see Joe Biden even do an event before 9 a.m. in the morning. Here is Jen Psaki saying this on national television.
President Biden does nothing at 9 a.m. He is a night owl. So the fact that he is doing this at 9 a.m. anyway speaks to how vital the White House recognizes it is.
Yeah, he does nothing at 9 a.m. because he's still sleeping. He's not awake yet. He can't get out and do something. What do you think this is? He's the president of the United States. It's not supposed to be an intensive job. So that's the position that they've had on this subject. Now, today, a reporter asked Karinge about Biden being so tired all the time and about the fact that there are no events before 10 a.m. and that they're constantly telling the reporters at the White House, hey, there are no further events today for you to cover. That's what they call a lid. That's a conclusion to today's events. So the reporter asks about that and says, if Biden's tired all the time, does that explain why you're telling us that there are no other events for us to cover on a frequent basis? Listen to her freak.
Becoming the last politician inside Joe Biden's White House in the struggle for America's future. The Guardian has excerpts today saying the president has told aides in private that he felt tired, and that explains why there are so few events before 10 a.m. So two questions. Is this why we're seeing brunch lids in recent weeks? Today we had a breakfast lid. And has the president admitted to you?
Wait, say that last part?
Now, she can't understand him because she can't track a British accent. But here's what he's saying. Is that why we've had all of these lunch lids? That is, the day's business keeps concluding at lunchtime. And is that why we had a breakfast lid this morning?
So is that why we had a breakfast lid this morning? I mean, the book is...
What?
There was a breakfast lid came to the press for the first time, I think. We've had some brunch lids in recent weeks as well. So my question is
so you think we've had those lit because of this excerpt?
Not because of the excerpt.
Now she's playing stupid. Now she's just pretending not to understand the question. You think we're calling a lid because of an excerpt? No, stupid. He's saying that because Biden is perpetually tired, you are shutting down any events with the president of the United States.
Those lit because of this excerpt?
Not because of the excerpt. The book is suggesting the president tells aides he's tired.
But that's in the excerpt, right?
Yeah, and that's why there have been so few.
Now, here's one of the things about this book that the White House is not going to be able to dance around. This is not some guy who was on the outside writing with anonymous sources. The White House gave him access. This is another brilliant plan on the part of the White House. They gave this guy access. He is he's a writer. They call him a progressive writer in The Guardian. He had written, I believe, previously. Oh, yeah, he's a former editor for The New Republic. So they thought, this guy's a lefty. He's going to protect us. All the lefties we know protect us. So they invited him into the White House, and they didn't expect that this would blow up in their face. And here it is blowing up in their face. And so she's not going to have a meaningful answer to this at all. So this is just the beginning of this saga. And she says it was said in the excerpt that he doesn't do events before 10 a.m. Yeah, and also our own eyeballs tell us that.
The president tells aides he's tired.
But that's in the excerpt, right?
Yeah, and that's why there have been so few public events before 10 a.m.
I mean, that's a ridiculous assumption to make. I mean, that's a ridiculous assumption to make.
And then she moved on. She went full North Korea on that. He's the strongest American we've ever had. In fact, she has been doing this dance for a while, which is like, Biden is so much more impressive than everybody else. Biden out-hustles everyone. Nobody can keep up with Joe Biden. Here she is doing this on CNN yesterday with Jake Tapper.
Is the White House worried that questions about President Biden's stamina could ultimately impact whether or not voters will be able to support him for a second term?
So I'm going to be careful about 2024. I can't speak to that directly, but
you can talk about the perception of the public with the president's stamina and his age.
I'm happy to talk about that. I get asked that question a lot. Here's the thing. You know, what this president brings to this administration is wisdom and experience. And that is just true as senator, as vice president, and now as president.
Wisdom and experience.
And we just talked about, we had a really, and I appreciate the conversation that we had on Medicare, the first 10 tranche of prescription drugs that
the first 10 tranche
we just introduced because of the Inflation Reduction Act. And
she's the press secretary.
That is The thing that the president is able to do is deliver, really move forward historic pieces of legislation, change the lives of Americans for generations to come. And that is what we
He delivers, all right. Tell me about all 20 of the bank accounts that he's been using for all of that money.
Focus on the president's record and what he's been able to do. Look, people have come after the president about his age. They did it in 2019. They did it in 2020 leading into the general election.
Did they do it in 2021 even? Maybe even 2022?
And they did it in 2022.
Oh,
and guess what?
She skipped 21.
He beats them every time because he has his finger on the pulse on what it is that the American people need.
Yeah, he has his nose on the hair of the American people's needs.
He talks about issues that really matter to the American people,
Sure.
and he is delivering.
He's always delivering. He's beating them every time, she said. Going on here, Jake Tapper says, well, wait a second. Americans are very worried about Biden's age. What are your thoughts?
You're part of the 23% of adults who are not concerned about the president's ability to be president because of his age and stuff.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of those Americans aren't paid to have that opinion.
I got it.
That's because all you got to do is watch
but
him.
77%, but 77% of adults are worried. That includes Democrats who presumably will vote for him.
69% of them.
What did you make of it the other day when former Ambassador and Governor Nikki Haley said that President Biden is, I'm paraphrasing here, but something along the lines of, degrading before our eyes, and that ultimately Vice President Kamala Harris will be president in a second term?
Look, again, I'm not going to respond directly to Nikki Haley. Not going to do that. Can't do that. Hatch Act. Got to be really mindful and careful here.
Oh,
what I can speak to is look at his record.
Can you speak to anything on any subject in any coherent way, please? Just give us a try. I mean, we're paying you a lot of money. Can you do some simple mathematics? Impress us, please.
And people were so impressed that he was able to be there and look strong and represent the American people.
A little setup here. She's talking about how Joe Biden went to Kiev. In case you're wondering about his age, he went all the way to Kiev. And he went to Kiev, and he was impressive. We couldn't keep up with him.
Look strong and represent the American people in Kiev, in a war zone country. And that's
war zone
what
country. What is this?
You saw.
I'm not
right?
saying he's not able to walk.
But you're talking about his strength, right? You're talking about how he's looking right now.
He's 80.
That is.
I think like the average American male only lives to be 77 or something.
But here's the thing, Jake. People saw him and were impressed that he was able to do that he was able to be there and present the American people. Look, the president says this all the time. Watch him, right? Watch him. And
They are watching him. That's what I'm saying. That's the 77% who are concerned.
No. But
I didn't see the segment. I'm only listening to it with you. I'd like to believe that a good CNN producer, if they were actually trying to put this together, would put up videos of Biden tripping up and down stairs as they were talking to Karinge. I can guarantee that's not what it looked like.
I've had conversations with some of your colleagues in the White House press corps when we travel abroad, how it is hard for us to keep up with this president. Who is constantly working every day to get things done.
Oh, that's sad. If that's true, it's pathetic.
And making sure that we are delivering for the American people. And I think that's what matters. I get it. I get what you're asking me, but the record matters too, Jake.
Watch him. It's hard for us to keep up with him. He's so fast, he can run circles around us. It may be true in her case, actually, at least mentally. He may just be so far ahead of her that she's looking at him in awe. She's just like, I can't believe how impressive he is. She wouldn't say that sentence because she can't summon it, but still, some version of that would bop around in her head. Maybe it is the truth. Maybe I just can't keep up with Joe Biden. Amazing. Meanwhile, Mitch McConnell had yet another health scare on camera today. He's completely falling apart. The evidence of why Mitch McConnell needs to step down, so does Joe Biden, by the way, immediately, for the good of himself and the country.
The press always asks me, don't I wish I were debating him? No, I wish we were in high school. I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish.
Joe Biden is a stone-cold weirdo. That was Biden from the 2020 campaign trail. I wish I could take Trump behind the gym. What? What are you talking about? Remember he challenged that guy to a push-up contest? The guy was like 50 years younger than Joe. Joe, do one push-up. Joe, just lay flat on your stomach and then stand up. Let's see if you can do that. Meanwhile, a scare for Mitch McConnell today, another one. He was unable to respond to a reporter's question at an event in Covington, Kentucky. He is 81 years old. Reporter asks him about whether or not he's going to run for re-election. And McConnell freezes completely for the second time on camera this summer. Here's the moment today.
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's
He's just staring into the distance.
Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026?
He's locked
I'm
up.
sorry, you all. We're going to need a minute. Senator. Penny.
Nothing. Another aide comes over, trying to shake him out of it.
okay.
Somebody else have a question? Please speak up.
Yeah, it ended basically right after. He was able to kind of get it back together to give a half of an answer to the next question, and then the thing was over. This is a disaster. He needs to retire. He needs to resign. Step down from the job. Step down for your good and for our good. The same is true of all of these government officials who are either too old and senile or who are mentally incapacitated. Whether it's Biden or McConnell or John Fetterman or Dianne Feinstein or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they all need to step aside because of their limited mental capabilities right now. They clearly have trouble. Clearly. And it's time to go. Definitely true in Mitch McConnell's case. There's been some reporting that he's had a number of incidents out of public sight. These are just the things that we've seen on camera. It's tough to watch, tough to hear. But for the good of the country, it's time to go. It's time to go. All right, coming up, we'll be joined by Mark Trammel from the Center for American Liberty. He's going to discuss his group's victory representing a mother and her daughter. Their school, while she was a sixth grader, attempted to groom her into the gender cult, and they just won a lawsuit that is against the school district. More ahead. Good afternoon to you. 3:35 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up, we'll be joined by a Gold Star father, Darren Hoover, whose son, Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover Jr., died during that disastrous withdrawal and bombing at the Abbey Gate there in Kabul. Darren Hoover ahead at 4:30. 5:30, we talked to Congressman Andrew Clyde. And always, we talk to you at 888-630-9625. 888-630-WMAL. Be happy to have you with us today. We've got a story to share with you, a good one, of a mother and daughter who have now won their lawsuit in a big settlement with a school district in California that was grooming the girl, that was trying to groom her into the gender cult. It's all so crazy. Take a listen. I've got some audio for you here. The mother and daughter combo, Jessica Konen, who was represented by the Center for American Liberty, filed this lawsuit on behalf of her sixth grade daughter, Alicia. The school was trying to recruit the daughter into the, quote, equality club, where she was taught about bisexuality and transgender identity. The school took active steps to help Alicia conceal her identity as a, quote unquote, boy, and gave her articles on how to keep her identity a secret from her parents. Take a listen to Jessica and Alicia announcing this week that they've won this case.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Konen.
And I'm Alicia.
And as you know, we've been battling this for quite a while now.
But we have great news. We settled our case.
We are now receiving justice from the school that decided to try to transition my daughter behind my back. This is so wrong, and this settlement right here proves in the public eye. Parents, please be bold. Stand up for your children and fight for them. Fight for your rights.
Thank you to Center for American Liberty for all of your help, and thank you for believing in me.
We let our voices be known, and we are so glad we did.
Thank you.
A big victory for protecting the rights of parents and the decency of our children. Mark Trammel is the executive director and general counsel of the Center for American Liberty and joins us now. Mark, good to have you with us, sir.
Vince, thanks for having me.
Well, you must be elated by this outcome.
Yeah, it's a good day. We'll leave it at that. It's a good day.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it from where I'm sitting. Tell us about this case, how you became aware of it, and what it was like to have this fight with this school district, the Spreckles Union School District in California.
Yeah, so interestingly, about a year and a half ago, we all learned of Jessica Konen. So Jessica, she found out what was happening in her daughter's school. Her daughter was 11 years old at the time. She was a sixth grader in middle school. And she found out what was happening behind her back, that the school was transitioning her daughter socially, had given her daughter a male name. She was no longer going by Alicia, but going by Skylar. They even went as far as to change her daughter's name in the school yearbook. And they did all of this without telling Jessica. And so Jessica, as you can imagine, goes to the school board meeting and is really frustrated, really upset. And she kind of just let him have it. It was a beautiful thing to watch, and it went viral overnight. Shortly thereafter, we got connected and filed this lawsuit, and for about a year and a half have been litigated. And thankfully, the case is now settled. The school district has agreed to pay Jessica and her daughter Alicia $100,000 for their injuries, and we're elated. They're elated, and I think, Vince, what it does, I think it sends a deafening message to school districts across the country that it's that like, oh crap moment. We've all had that, right? Where you realize you're doing something wrong. And I think school districts across the country have adopted these parental secrecy policies. And they've done so, some of them may be in good faith, but they've done so because they've been so pressured and they've been so told by the teachers unions and the special interest groups and the LGBT lobby that this is what you have to do. But what they're doing is they're violating parents' rights when they do so, and they're going to be held liable for it.
Yes.
And this case tells the country that if you do this to a child, if you transition a child socially behind mom and dad's back without parental notification, without parental consent, they have the ability to sue you, and they can make you pay out the nose.
Yeah, I mean, and they've done this by suggesting that telling your child that their body is not a mistake is equivalent to physically abusing them. The reason we have any sort of carve-out in terms of parental disclosure, what limited carve-out exists in this country at all, is if you're being physically or sexually abused by a parent and you tell another trusted adult, that makes sense to most people. That's like, okay, that's the kind of thing where you're trying to get this kid some help. Telling the kid that their body's a mistake in the school and then saying, keep it a secret from your parents, in that scenario, the abuser is the school.
That's exactly right. And what these schools are doing is they are assuming the worst in parents. You know, one of the things that struck me and that I liked so much about Jessica's case, because it's really hard for the left to attack Jessica as this, like, you know, if you advocate for conservative ideas, the left automatically, you know, labels you a bigot. It's really hard to say that of Jessica. Jessica, from day one, when she went to the school board meeting, said, I would support my daughter. If I thought this was legitimate, if I thought this was coming from my daughter and not from the school, I would support my daughter. But you robbed my opportunity to be a supportive parent. And I think that message is so important because schools, they're assuming that parents don't have their child's best interests at heart. They're then wedging teachers in between parents and children. And at the end of the day, this is really dangerous for kids. And when a child is identifying in a school setting by a different name, by different gender, sex, whatever, these are things parents should know about, and that parents and schools should be in communication with, so that kids can get the help that they need. This assumption that parents aren't going to get the help that the kids need is just, it's a lie, and I think it has political origins, right? They're afraid that a parent is going to get their child counseling that will affirm their actual, you know, biological sex, and that's what the left doesn't want to see happen.
It's so crazy. So this Spreckles Union School District is about 90 miles southeast of San Francisco. So this is happening in Deep Blue, California, where this fight played out. The school district loses. They decide to settle in this case, as the mother is saying, "You're propagandizing my daughter behind my back." You kind of indicated before that this is will send a warning shot to other schools. How perilous is it legally for a school to tell a student, "Don't tell your parents what's happening inside the classroom"?
Yeah, I think it's a really bad idea for schools to do this. I think this case illustrates that. Now there are cases that have been filed across the country, and some of them have a different outcome. But seeing this case here, where the school is having to pay damages, is really important. And I say that because there's a couple lines of cases here. So some cases are seeking injunctive relief. They're seeking the court to declare a school policy unconstitutional. And that's a good strategy, right? We want precedent that can be applied across the state, across the country. There's a value to that. There's also a value to cases like this where Jessica wasn't seeking a declaration that the school's policy was unconstitutional. Her daughter was no longer at that school. She was seeking damages, financial damages for injuries that they suffered. And I think that has a deterring effect. And not many, I'm not aware of other cases that have been filed where a parent has sought damages, like Jessica did.
Yeah.
And I think she was smart for doing so, because I think, the universal language we all understand is money. And when school districts, especially in rural areas that aren't as flush with cash as, maybe the Montgomery County, Fairfax County, DC, area schools are, when they get, hit with $100,000 liability or more for more egregious situations, that's going to deter that behavior from continuing.
I really hope so. How commonplace is this now? Now that you've spent some time on this issue, has this become more and more common among schools nationwide?
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in states you wouldn't expect. This is not just happening in New York and Los Angeles. It's all the flyover states. It's Republican states you wouldn't expect. It's literally happening everywhere. And our phones at the Center for American Liberty have been really ringing off the hook for over a year now with these types of cases. Some of the cases you can't bring for a variety of reasons, but this one was one that was ripe to bring to court, and we're pleased to do so. We're also representing Aurora Regino in a similar matter up in Northern California. But again, this is not just happening in California; it's happening across the country.
Yeah, and the specifics of Alicia's case here is that they recruited her into something they called the Equality Club, and they're trying to teach her about all of these radical gender identities. So in addition to the deception that I just asked you about, how commonplace is it? You said it's happening everywhere. How much is this gender instruction taking over the schools now?
Well, I think you see it in these extracurriculars like the Equality Club, which let me just point out one observation, Vince, before I answer your question more directly about the Equality Club. Interestingly, this was the one extracurricular club that doesn't meet after school. This club met during lunch. And I think that's important to note, because if a extracurricular club is meeting after school, parents have to know about it.
Yes.
They have to come pick up their child or arrange for someone else to pick up their child. But if something is happening during lunch, that lunch hour, parents don't know about it. They're not told about it. And that's how this particular school and how other schools across the country are keeping things like this secret from parents. So Alicia, as you mentioned earlier in your broadcast, was assigned a research project on transgenderism. She was assigned required reading on how to keep your transgenderism from your mom. She was told you can't trust your mom. Your mom can't be trusted. All of this is happening in a rural community, and in California, it's happening everywhere.
Yes. So in your view, the kind of the gender ideology, the propaganda around gender, the suggestion that you can be born in the wrong body, it's pervasive now.
It's pervasive. It's in the more traditional classroom setting as well, right? You look at what are the history lessons that are being taught? What books are the kids reading, and what are the themes that are throughout those books? It's literally it's everywhere. When I was in school, the big thing was sex education, right?
Yeah.
And so much of this was limited, if they touched on it. Like the big question was like, do you teach abstinence or not? And then
I remember
parents were always given a form they could opt out if you didn't want the school to teach your children about birth control. Like that is not even part of the conversation today, right? Like that, it is. These conversations that they're having with kids, these schools are having with kids, are quite perverse, and they're happening at young ages, really young ages. I mean, Alicia was 11 years old. She was being told by her school, "You're probably bisexual." I'm sorry, Vince, an 11-year-old should not be sexual at all.
Of course. So how difficult was it, if you know, for Jessica to unwind this, what the school had done to her daughter?
Well, interestingly, in this case, when we look at the COVID shutdown, I shouldn't call it the COVID shutdown. When the government got really scared over COVID and shut down our schools, when the government did that, then the silver lining was it actually separated the school officials from Alicia. And it allowed Alicia to step back and to see really, I think, this coercive behavior that she was sitting under. And it allowed her to really see who she is and to understand. So
yes,
it wasn't an easy kind of like detransition.
No.
But at the same time, like it was a blessing in disguise for this family that Alicia was pulled out of that school.
Yep, and got some distance from her abusers, which helped her in this case. It's just an amazing saga. Mark Trammel, I want to congratulate you again and thank you on behalf of Americans everywhere who want to see decency return to our country. You're a part of that effort. Thank you, Mark, very much.
Thanks, Vince. Appreciate it.
Mark Trammel, the Executive Director, General Counsel for the Center for American Liberty. Big victory there as they force a school district to acknowledge that they totally violated the rights of this child as they attempted to groom her and separate her from her parents. It's all so crazy. A small victory, meaningful one for liberty here. I was telling you earlier about a video coming out of Kentucky today of Mitch McConnell freezing up as he addressed the press today for the second time, at least in a publicly visible way, this summer. He went for nearly 40 seconds without saying a word, just staring blankly ahead. People around him asking him if he's okay, if he needed to go somewhere, just blank. He's 81 years old. Sam is calling in from Alexandria on that subject. Line 2. Sam, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Good afternoon, Vince. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, as a former Kentucky boy, I have my thoughts about McConnell and what he's done well and what he's not done well. Mm-hmm. And as I'm listening to the story and after he had his earlier episode in the summer, I was thinking, dude, you need to get out of here. But the more I thought about it after this latest story, I said, the dude's taking one for the team. And I say that because the current Kentucky governor is a Democrat. So the rules are if the senator retires or leaves other than an election, how does that seat get filled?
Yeah.
The Kentucky governor would name.
They used to be like that, exactly. Sam. Back when you lived in Kentucky, it was like that. I have some good news for you, though. It is not like that anymore. In 2021, the Kentucky state legislature actually introduced a law and then overrode the Democrat Andy Beshear's veto that said that if there is a vacancy in a Senate seat in Kentucky, the replacement is chosen by the party of the senator who just vacated the seat. So the state party gets to choose 3 people. They present them all to the governor, and then he gets to choose from that list of 3. That's his only option, according to the law in Kentucky. So there is a way to do this. If he steps down, and look, step down. I said he should step down, even as minority leader. Even if he stays in the Senate, step down from the leadership role. But he could step down as a senator, Sam, and have a Republican replace him.
Well, hallelujah that you're better in touch with the Kentucky politics than I am, brother. Thank you.
Well, Sam, God bless you for calling in, as always. Thank you very much. I thought it's a useful point, though, as we contemplate Mitch McConnell's future. What's going to happen? He should retire, and this is all the more reason why. It is now 3:58.